Assistant Tom.
Issues of importance to them in this election. It's a wonderful opportunity for you, the voters, to learn where the candidates stand on the issues facing House District 56 and all Texans. The debate will be video recorded and the media have been invited to attend. Time limits for all comments will be strictly enforced. In fairness to all candidates, the audience, we ask that these limits be respected. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening remarks to introduce themselves. The moderator will then ask questions. Also, I want to let you know there are index cards on the table at the door if you would like to write down your own question as we go through the debate. We want to address as many questions as possible in the time available. Each candidate 2 minutes. If time permits, candidates will also have 3 minutes for a closing statement. A timekeeper will hold up signs to indicate when you have 1 minute remaining, 15 seconds remaining, and when you must stop. All candidates will rotate the order in which they respond to questions. No booing or heckling allowed by anyone at any time. If so, violators will be removed from the room. I would like to now introduce, and it's my honor to introduce my own County Commissioner, Patricia Chisholm Miller. Commissioner Miller is going to be the hostess for the rest of this part of the debate. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It is on. My voice is loud enough, so I don't know why that didn't get better. But good afternoon. And and a privilege to be with you this afternoon. All of you all who are visiting into McLennan County, welcome. If you have some time, we urge you to visit all of our wonderful tourist attractions. You will see that Waco and McLennan County has grown since your last visit. But getting back to why we are here, I am now going to introduce the candidates and the moderators for this session. This is the race for Texas House District 56. The Democrat is Aaron Shank. The Republican is Charles Doc Anderson. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening remarks to introduce themselves. And after that, the moderator will take over. We are so fortunate and honored to have one of my dear friends, Mr. David Schleicher, as our moderator for this session. David is a former elected Waco School Board, third year as its president. As a lawyer, he represents Texas businesses and nonprofits. He also represents federal employees around the world, including many law enforcement officers. What the paper does not say is that he did serve as a civil rights attorney during the Clinton administration, and I love to always mention that. And so at this time, I will turn it over to our moderator for this session, Mr. David Schleicher.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
And if Doc Anderson shows up, we will just very smoothly welcome him here and continue wherever we are in the questions. Would you like to start with your introduction?
Sure. Thank you, David, for moderating this, and thank you, Tom Hansen, for putting this together. Thank you all for watching this live or live stream. I am Aaron Shank. I am a mom. I am a lawyer. I am a small business owner. I'm a Christian. I am a former teacher. I am the wife of a veteran, and I'm a proud Wacoan. I am running for the Texas House of Representatives because I believe I can provide better representation to our community in the Texas House. I have been studying politics and law since I was in college, which was a long time ago. I have 3 college degrees, all in politics and law, one from Trinity University, one from SMU in Dallas, and my law degree from my beloved Red Raiders, who are playing UT right now. Go Tech. And I want to bring my years of representing folks. I've represented over 6,000 Central Texans as an attorney here in Central Texas. I want to take the years I've had of experience of representing folks and represent this community in the Texas House of Representatives. So I appreciate your vote on the great.
All right, first question. In disputes between the federal government and the state over immigration policy, who do you think should have the last word?
Interesting question. I write a column that appears in the Waco Trib and the McGregor paper and the West paper every week. And my column tomorrow is on immigration. According to the federal constitution, immigration is responsibility of the federal government. However, border states like Texas, and we're the biggest border states, need to work in conjunction with the federal government to implement the immigration policy. Our immigration system is broken. It needs to be repaired. It hasn't been changed since Ronald Reagan was president, and that was a long time ago. And I'm an attorney who spent 40 years in the federal courthouse here in Waco, Texas, and up in Dallas. Immigration is federal law, bankruptcy is federal law, and I am willing to roll my sleeves up and help any way I can in improving our broken immigration system. It needs to be fixed, absolutely.
Okay, question 2. Do you believe state law should ban or allow abortions for children who were raped?
Great question. Yes, I can't imagine anything worse than a child rape. I have a little girl, and if she got pregnant, it would kill her. So I've had to advocate her reproductive health decisions through court systems to make sure that her life would never be taken if she was raped. So I really think, though, if I can digress for a minute, we really need to find a way to come together on this abortion issue. Everything my opponent has proposed, sponsored, voted for, tortures women after they have become unexpectedly pregnant. I think we need to work on prevention and education. Did you know that in 100 other countries, but not America, a woman can buy birth control pills over the counter at the pharmacy? Many countries, they're given up free. And so that prevents the pregnancy. You never even have to get to the abortion issue. Also, I think now that there is no exception for rape or incest, we need to educate our women. My opponent's party's platform proposes no sex education at all in our schools, 0. And I believe we need to educate our youth on sex education and prevention. And I think we definitely need to work on preventative measures and making it very, very easy and inexpensive for women to protect herself.
Okay, next question. When it comes to cities making their own policies on things like police funding, use of plastic bags, and anti-discrimination rules, should the legislature be overruling those cities?
You know, one of the things I really believe in, especially in a state as big and as diverse as Texas, is local control. I've spent time with our police chiefs, several of them here, and I just believe in local control. I think it's hard when the governor comes and he tries to make something for the entire state. Everyone has to do it this way because people that live in Lubbock lived there. That's where I went to law school. Think differently than people live in the valley. So I think our local police chiefs need to be able to address problems directly with their community. I believe that Cheryl Victorian and her community policing is doing excellent work here. And I just want to return our lives back. I want as little control from the government as possible and leave it to our local officials.
All right. Is there any proposal to reduce mass shootings that you think could get bipartisan support?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Yesterday, I spent all day at the Texas Tribune Festival, and I went to a session, half of the session was incumbent Republicans talking about the next legislative session, and the afternoon was Democrats talking about it. And I sat through the whole thing. And the conclusion I came with, they both said, is that it really depends on who our governor is on whether we get any gun safety legislation. Greg Abbott yesterday they reported will veto if we try to raise the age to 21. And any background checks will be vetoed by Governor Abbott if he is reelected. One of the things that's very interesting, though, in the recent bipartisan federal legislation that was just passed, is they are sending money to each of the 50 states to look at the red flag laws. Red flag laws can deal with the Second Amendment, and they can also impact the Fourth Amendment. And I think it's very important that we use those federal dollars and look at those red flag laws. As a mom, every time I hear about one of these shootings and the young men that go out into these horrific events, I think, where is their mother? I know if Paul and Billy were acting like that, I would know it. And you know, the El Paso shooter, his mother called the authorities and said, my son is not acting right. There is something wrong here. And the authorities could do nothing. And that's what a red flag law is. So we're going to get federal dollars to research that in the next legislative session. I'm an attorney. This impacts constitutional, legal issues. And I would like to be one of the reps studying these laws to help our mothers and our family members and perhaps stop some of these measures.
What one reform do you think would be most helpful in reducing deaths from interactions between citizens and law enforcement?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure.
Really good.
What one reform do you think would be most helpful in reducing deaths from interactions between citizens and law enforcement?
It's really an interesting question. You know, one of the things that I have been following that I just don't understand is the no-knock warrants. I don't think I haven't heard of any experiences that in Waco, but the Breonna Taylor death really touched my soul to think about a young woman just found asleep in bed and the police come barging in. In the Republican Party platform, which I read, and I actually talked about it in the last column, they want to increase no-knock warrants. And I just think that's, you know, I think back on the David Koresh when they went out there and tried to invade, and we saw the tragic results that occurred with the deaths of officers and the deaths of Branch Davidians. So I would not increase no-knock warrants at all, and that's what my funds party is proposing.
What one legislative issue would you most hope to be remembered as having been a leader on?
That's a good one. I would like to call it Rachel's Law. Right now, the trigger law, which is the law that went into effect when we lost Roe v. Wade, targets our doctors and our nurses and our medical professionals when they are assisting with a woman whose life may be in danger because of a failed pregnancy. And I've been right there with Rachel. As I mentioned before, if Rachel got pregnant, it would kill her. She has a blood clotting disorder, she has epilepsy, she has Down syndrome, she's medically fragile. And so when we were making decisions to help her never get pregnant, I was I'm her legal guardian, but the local hospitals here made me go get a court order before they would treat her. I think they thought, well, she'll never come back with a court order. Well, I know how to represent women, and I know how to fight for women, and I know how to fight for my daughter. That's what I want to do in Austin. 3 weeks later, I came back with a court order. So we need to keep politicians out of doctors' offices when those decisions are being made. Also, when I had Rachel, she was catastrophic. They were saying she would never. I am so glad when we made the decision to have her and that very difficult pregnancy that I had, that my doctor, James Norwood, never had any threat of criminal prosecution as he was advising me about that pregnancy. He advised me that I might want to consider having an abortion because there was a significant possibility that Rachel had Down syndrome. And I said, no, but that's a choice. and a choice I would make again. So I would like to implement Rachel's law, which would take the criminal penalties off of our medical professionals, our doctors, and our nurses that treat pregnant women with difficult pregnancies.
What role, if any, should the legislature play in addressing the extreme weather conditions?
Climate change, it is here, it is serious, and it is real. And someone asked me the other day, what are you doing to, protect against climate change? And I said, I'm running for the Texas House of Representatives. I'm running against a climate denier. I've actually seen him on YouTube. He was flat out asked, "Oh, do you believe in climate change?" And he said, of course not. I believe in climate change. I believe in science. So that's what I think we need. We need to address it. We need to address it with EVs. With all this money coming in from the federal government for our charging stations, we need to, as your rep, I'll make sure they're charging stations as many as we can get here in McLennan County. But when you vote for Erin Shank, you are definitely voting for someone who believes in climate change and that we need to protect our planet, not only for us, but for our future generations.
What role, if any, should the legislature play in reducing the number of Texas women dying during pregnancy and childbirth?
So many things. First of all, as I said, Rachel's law, let's take the target off of the doctor's back when they're trying to save women's lives.
Can you name someone who is running for the legislature or already in it, who is not a member of your political party, but who you think you might be able to work with together on some issues?
Mr. Nichols, I met him yesterday. He's a Republican. And he wants to look at the same issues that I'm talking about, the life of the mother exception, but he is also a Republican in the Texas Senate who wants to advocate for an exception for rape and incest in our current abortion laws. And I thought it was very interesting. And I went up after the session yesterday and shook his hand. So I look forward to working with him on those issues.
Should large social media companies have a legal right to remove posts that they find to be objectionable?
Yes, especially if they are false. And, we do have First Amendment rights, but you can't scream fire in a full theater. And so there are very dangerous things that are on social media that are false. And I do think that social media needs to be regulated. I'm an attorney, and when I want to put a website up or I want to advertise my legal services, I have to go to the state bar, and they will approve the ad or not approve the ad. And so simple common sense regulation, all that we put out there to make sure it's true and it's correct and it's not endangering us, I think is appropriate.
If you could make a change with just the wave of a wand, what one thing would you do to increase the number of people in Texas who vote?
Educating our youth. I'm a former teacher. And one of the reasons that I taught at 3 different law schools was I wanted to take my love of law and express it to another generation behind me. And I just don't think we teach our kids enough about how important voting is, about civics, about registering them to vote. So I think educating our youth about the very, very important services our government provide and how they can actually be a part of making change is very important.
What do you consider to be the single most difficult problem for the legislature to solve that you nonetheless think deserves its long-term attention?
One more time. By the way, I've not heard any of these questions beforehand. Just in case you had to figure that out.
What is the single most difficult problem for the legislature to solve that you think nonetheless deserves long-term attention?
How to stop gun violence. We're so polarized on that issue. And again, yesterday when I attended the all-day seminar, listening to both Republicans and Democrats, the way the next legislature, if it stays Republican, the way they're going to try to stop gun violence is through mental health. I definitely think we need to put dollars in our mental health system. We're one of the lowest funded mental health states. Lots of problems with that. But if we're not going to address some simple gun safety issues, I mean, these mass shootings are caused because we don't have sensible gun safety regulations. And the Shank family are proud gun owners. I am married to a veteran, and so I'm not going to take anybody's guns away. But I think simple gun safety regulations, I think increasing the age of buying an AR-15 to 21. I had 2 young boys. I can't even imagine Paul or Billy Shank at 18 years old with an AR-15. Thank God that never happened. But I think we're never going to get past these mass shootings unless we come together, put special interest money aside, and say we have to save our fellow citizens from these needless deaths. And it's just not going to be addressed. Here's the next session.
Do you think the current level of education funding is too high, too low, or just about right?
Too low. Our Texas public schools are underfunded $3,000 to $4,000 per student. And so my party, actually my opponent, his party wants to take money away from our public schools into the voucher program, which would give some parents money to be able to take their tax dollars and put their kids in private schools. It doesn't work for the parents that want to go to private schools, and it certainly hurts the public schools. The reason is private school education is so expensive, it's almost like a drop in the bucket what they would get. It really, though, affects our public schools, because if we're already funded and we take more money away from them, then we're only going to hurt our public schools. Our public schools are our next generation. They're our kids, they're our future, and we need to fund them more, much more. And we have a $27 billion surplus, which the next legislative session is going to be discussing how we spend that. And my top priority will be funding public schools and reducing property tax. And so we can do that in Texas.
What do you consider to have been the legislature's single biggest positive accomplishment in its last session?
I don't think there was one. I think it was extremely disappointing. I watched it closely. I think the thing that I was the most involved in, I wrote a letter to the editor. I visited my opponent personally. I testified in front of the House Redistricting Committee, was the voter suppression laws. Did you know that 125,000 Texans, primarily elderly and disabled, had their ballots thrown out in the March primary without a drop of evidence that elderly or disabled people cheat when they vote? Not one drop of evidence. I think the number is 150 McLennan County residents had their votes thrown in. You know, our vote is sacred. Our forefathers and our foremothers fought real hard for this precious right to vote. And the fact that in Texas we make it so hard, it just broke my heart, especially when they targeted the disabled. Because as the mother of a disabled child, I see the world now through the eyes of the disabled. And when they made it harder for no reason to have disabled people vote,
Do you consider it acceptable for the governor of one state to pick up immigrants in Texas and transport them to a third state?
I'll write about this tomorrow too. As I said, my column reading tomorrow's trip is on immigration. You know, I actually like the fact that we're talking about immigration because it's broken and we gotta fix it. But the Operation Lone Star, in which Governor Abbott has sent 10,000 Texas National Guard troops to the border, has cost $6 billion, and it didn't fix anything. This shipping immigrants off has cost somewhere between $12 and $14 million, and it's not fixing it. So I don't know about you guys, but I work real hard for those tax dollars that the government takes from me. And the government sent in $6 billion. I expect them to fix something. Imagine if we put that $6 billion into funding our public schools. What if we put that $6 billion into finding a cure for cancer? You know, we've got to come together and find a solution. And but we're not fixing anything, you know. And it's just flat out rude. You know, David, if you have some family members that were in trouble and needed help. And you brought them over to my house. I'd open my door and I'd help you. But if you showed up with 50 of them, you didn't tell them they come. And they didn't have any clothes, they didn't have any food. It's rude, you know. So many of the governors were willing to help. They just needed a little advance notice that these folks are coming. So, no, I think it's a political stunt. But I mainly think that when you're an elected official, that you are a steward of our money. And if you're going to spend over $6 billion, you better spend it responsibly, you better fix the problem. And it's not being fixed.
Do you believe it's appropriate for there to be any influence on the Texas legislature from the QAnon movement?
Well, you know, when you're in the Texas legislature, there are a ton of lobbyists that come from left, right, and up and down. You listen to everyone. The QAnon movement, you know, they think Democrats like eat babies. I mean, that's just, we don't. I've got a baby. I had 3. I didn't eat any of them. So it's just so wild and so extreme. But I respect everyone who wants to talk to me, whether they agree with me or not. When I talk to folks from, you know, I listen to all sorts of news stations. I talk to all sorts of people because when you are elected to serve, you serve all the community. That is one of the problems I have with our current representation is not representing all of us. You can never make everybody happy, but you've got to listen. So although I certainly disagree with everything that QAnon stands for, getting every right to be heard.
What might area legislators do working together to increase local accessibility to mental health treatment facilities?
Well, according to what I learned yesterday at the Texas Tribune, we're going to have millions, if not billions of dollars, you know, put into mental health, and I would be building more facilities. And one of the things that I think was really disappointing is after we lost the old Hillcrest Hospital here because it was purchased by Scott White, and Scott White moved over to the I-35, is that we were not able to convert old Hillcrest into a mental health facility or a drug rehabilitation facility. That's what our county leaders and city leaders wanted to do. And they were able to do that in both Dallas and Fort Worth. They needed state funding, but we couldn't get that done here in McLennan County. And I believe that's because we didn't have a strong rep that had developed the relationships with other reps. He was up against a big coalition of Dallas representatives and a big coalition of Houston representatives. But I know how to build coalitions. And I've done lots of bankruptcies with Dallas lawyers, Houston lawyers, but we've ended up getting things done, getting big mediation settled. So I think we need a mental health and a drug facility here in Waco. There is one being built out near the Federal Express facility, but it has a limited number of beds. And I think we're going to need more mental health facilities and more mental health professionals. And that's why I think you need a strong rep like me in the next session, because if that's where they're going to spend their money, then fighting this gun violence problem we have, well, I want to be there at the table fighting for those dollars to come back to McLennan County because we need them.
Do you foresee any opportunity for Waco or nearby cities to be a stop for future high-speed rail development?
Well, the Republican Party platform wants no high-speed rail in Texas. That's what their platform is. I totally disagree with that. Not only environmentally, but so it just depends on which party you get on that one. I definitely support high-speed rail. I think it would help with congestion. I think it would definitely help with climate or climate challenges. And I support it. In Europe, they have lots of high-speed rail. And it's kind of nice to get on and not have to drive your car in traffic, read the paper, talk to your friends. So I support high-speed rail, especially in a large state like Texas.
What is the appropriate role, if any, for the legislature in fighting inflation?
I think we need to do everything we can to fight inflation. And so what we want to do is reduce the cost of what taxpayers pay. And if you're a homeowner, one of your biggest bills is your mortgage, and a portion of that is your property taxes. And one way that we can reduce property taxes is expand Medicaid. Because when you're paying on your property taxes, a whole bunch of that goes to pay for indigent health care. And we have to pay for indigent health care because we haven't expanded Medicaid. We're now one of only 12 states that has not expanded Medicaid. When you expand Medicaid, we're getting our own dollars that we've already paid back into our system. It's sort of like, you know, if I put money in a savings account over at Community Bank, when I decide I want my money, when I go to get it, I expect to get it back. But Doug Anderson has prevented us from getting our dollars back. And that's left millions of dollars not coming to Texas. It's left millions of Texans uninsured, and other states are taking our money and using our Medicaid dollars for their patients and their citizens. You know that all three of our medical facilities here in Texas asked Doc Anderson, especially during the pandemic, please expand Medicaid. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We need to have a Medicaid expanded. And he didn't listen to our hospitals. I will listen to our hospitals. They've saved my daughter's life 64 times. I'll listen.
Please rank the following from 1 to 3 as to the level of threat you believe them to pose to the security of Texas citizens.
One being the worst.
1 being the worst.
Okay.
Immigration, international terrorism, domestic terrorism.
One is the worst.
Yes.
So the first one is immigration.
I'm asking you to rank those 3 in the order
Okay.
you think is appropriate as the highest risk to.
Okay. The highest risk would be domestic terrorists, and then international terrorists, and then immigration.
Beyond what's already been done, what 1 to 3 things would you support changing to improve the reliability of the Texas energy grid?
I would winterize the natural gas piece. That's what failed. And in this last legislative session, they did not do. And so the thing that failed didn't get fixed. And then our governor took $1 million campaign donation from the natural gas companies. So it's just astounding to me. But I do believe that the grid is not fixed because the natural gas companies have not been required to weatherize or weatherize.
Who among present or past lawmakers would you consider to be a role model?
Ann Richards, I love her haircut. Although I'll never go bouffant. Sorry, Mom. My mother had that bouffant hair, and I remember watching her get it back. I loved Ann Richards, and she reached across the aisle, and I really liked her. But she also came in with a bang. She was her own true self, and she was from Waco. She went to Baylor. So I think Ann Richards is wonderful.
What do you consider to be the most pressing issue that, in addition to those already discussed,
The most pressing issue before the legislature?
that we've left out?
We haven't talked so much about reduction of property taxes. I kind of touched on that a little bit more, but we have an underfunded school system. We talked about that, but we keep on relying every time we want to fund the public school system to increasing property taxes. And you are talking to someone who will really be a strong advocate of stopping it. My husband and I own a real estate company. We own rental properties, and we have to work months just to pay the property taxes on those properties before we can take any income. And he's retired. That's our source of income. So there's a lot of alternatives that we can look at funding our public schools that do not rely solely on increasing property taxes. I want to explore those. They're telling me my time's up, but we need to fund our public schools without constantly increasing property taxes. I wrote a column on all my different ideas on that you can read on my webpage.
Okay, do we have any audience questions?
Any audience questions? Okay. Step forward. Come forward, please. So everybody can hear.
So my name is Dustin. I actually am number one. I was the independent candidate for against Aaron and Bob. So I'm actually right now currently dropping out and supporting and endorsing Aaron. But my question to Aaron is we touched base on this quite a few times on the phone. With East Waco being in District 13 with Cedric Davis, do you want to put that back in McLennan County District 56? Because that needs to be in McLennan County because it is a part of McLennan County. So number one, how do you plan on putting it? If you do, how do you plan on doing it?
Oh, excellent question. So, Tony Anderson has been representing, basically Waco, a good portion of Waco, for now 18 years. So twice redistricting has come up in front of him. And both times, a lot of people don't realize this. He has cut East Waco out of being represented by him. And huge portions of the, if you will, the other side of the river. The entire community around Riker High School is not represented by Doc Anderson. If you think about the demographics of that community, it's largely Hispanic community. The entire community around the new HEB on I-35 is not represented by Doc Anderson. Sacred Heart Catholic Church that I visited, a beautiful church, is not represented by Doc Anderson. Those communities in the past were represented by Kyle Gasol from College Station. Think about that. A big portion of Waco is represented by College, Black and brown community, and they were not getting representation. Mr. Gasol was, over 100 miles away. And so I lobbied Doc. I wrote a letter to the editor. I testified in front of the redistricting committee because when we did the census and the district could grow, I felt like he should pick up East Waco because then Waco would have a representative, and he refused to do that. But we are going to have the last because Cedric Davis, I hope and every morning pray that he is our representative of East Waco. And so it's going to backfire on him because now Waco will have two strong representatives representing it in Waco, Cedric and I. We have pledged to work together. We call each other running mates. We call and talk and text frequently each week. And so I kind of like the way it's turned out. Redistricting, Dustin, won't come back in front of the legislature for 10 more years because it's discussed every 10 years unless we decide to go through the voting commissions.
Anyone else?
I was to ask this for my sister. The Retired Teachers Association of the public schools, retired school teachers, they have not had a COLA, cost of living raise in over 19 years, and they are planning to make a hard run at it session. So how would you feel about working with you?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I've actually volunteered to help co-sponsor the bill that would give the retired teachers a raise. I've actually looked, there is a Republican and Democratic House members that are, when I was just in Austin yesterday, they were talking about that. So there's a lot of move, both on the Republican and Democratic side. I think we can put together a nonpartisan bill, and I will be a co-sponsor of it. I think our retired teachers need a cost of living raise. Actuarially, the numbers are there. Makes no sense not to, especially in these inflationary times. So look to me to be a sponsor of that. I will have our teachers back and our retired teachers back. I taught for many, many years.
A question about retired employees from the state of Texas. I've been retired 14 years and I have not seen a COVID, increase. And some of the other ones have been longer than me. So, and the reason is because the state legislature stopped putting in money, matching money to the employees. When the budget got down to the end, they would cut contribution to the retirees. Well, then the ERS was not actually sound to give any kind of code. So what are y'all planning to do as far as state employees too?
Well, we have $27 billion surplus. It may even be larger than that. And that's what the next legislative session is going to be talking about, how to spend that money, how to spend it wisely. So I would definitely support retirees getting a raise and the current workers getting a raise. I think it's time. I support $15 minimum wage. We were able to do that here in Waco, our city council did, and I want to lead that in Austin. But I definitely think our retirees need a raise. And that's why this next session is so important, this huge surplus that we have. This is a once in a lifetime time. We also have $13 billion in a rainy day fund. We have such a big savings account that our citizenry is hurting so bad in these inflationary times. We need people. I've run 2 small businesses. We need folks that'll go in there and wisely figure out how to spend this money. And we've got to spend it on our people.
Okay, we got one on the front row, I believe.
Hi, I'm Luciana Sanchez. And my question to you is, as part of education, I have been advised that early childhood development has been cut due to funding. With this surplus, would you work to, again, promote programs like EOAC Head Start and pre-K and pre-K3 for our communities here?
Yes, ma'am. I had 3 babies in 3.5 years. If you don't think I appreciate daycare and early childhood development, you're wrong. I was able to practice law because we good daycares, and we are a daycare desert now here in McLennan County. During the pandemic, so many women went home, took care of the babies, and the kids couldn't go to school. Now they want to re-enter the workforce. And when you've got a young child, you can't it's very difficult to enter the workforce if you can't find good in a daycare for them. I have a paralegal right now. We're still virtual in my law practice. And one of the reasons is she was pregnant when the pandemic hit. And we went virtual and we stayed that way. She can't go back and work in the office because she can't find daycare that she can afford and that she trusts. She's had her son, who's now 2, on a daycare waiting list. She was pregnant before the pandemic hit. And there's not an opening yet. So we have got to work on this daycare desert. And as a mom, I had 3 kids in 3.5 years. I know how important that is.
Thank you. My name is Sharon Berry. I am a former county chair of Houston County and currently the Senate District 3 Committee 1. I sit on that 2020 review committee of what we did right and what we did wrong. And I look around and one of the key points was our message. And when we watch TV and we see the Republican regime, kind of really human trafficking people from one place to the other, and you see African Americans targeted because when we vote, things change. When you see this happening, what is your message and how are you trying to, basically, get rid of the message that's currently on the books for the Republican Party?
Good question.
And you can look around the room to see the messaging, it's still as it is.
That's a really interesting question. I think the message that I would give to voters in this election is let's look at the most qualified candidate. Okay. Because the Texas House of Representatives is really important. We have been represented by a gentleman who has won the Furniture Award twice. And we laugh about it, but that means he was voted by Texas Monthly dead last twice. He has also never chaired a committee in the 18 years he has been there. If you know anything about the legislative process, everything is done in the committees. So we need a representative who will be down there, will be a leader, and will lead us appropriately, who is experienced, who's studied law and politics. When you want a veterinarian, when you have a sick puppy, that's when you need a veterinarian. When we've got a lot of problems to solve, and it's not a veterinarian, it is lawyer, small business owner, mom. Listen to all the questions that came in, and I think they all have to do with either small business, law, or the family, and that's what my message is.
There was one last, I think I'll put it back. Oh, you're right. I thought you were-
Okay, there are several hundred thousands of individuals that have been incarcerated in Scott County. Being no, they don't know they can vote, or if they try to vote, they get disenfranchised or turned away at the poll. When you win, because not yet, but when you win, when you go to Austin, what would you do on the criminal justice reform to make sure those voters get an opportunity to enter into the process?
I just think voter education is so important on all levels. We talked about it separated from schools, but when you have served your time, you've made a mistake, and you served your time, and you can now have your voting rights restored, we ought to be telling you that. And we worked hard to get voting. You know, when our Constitution was written, you had to be a white property owner to vote. And we have come a long way. Women couldn't vote, and our poor mothers fought real hard for that. So I think educating, because we need to get as many people as possible voting. I believe in online voter registration. We need to make it easier to vote. The Republican Party wants to take early voting down to 3 days. That's what their platform says. We need to make it longer, easier, more drop-off locations. The fact is, you say so many times that Harris County now has one drop-off location in the entire county. Why would you do that? Unless you wanted to suppress this precious right to vote. So we have this precious right to vote. We should no longer be represented by furniture in the Texas House. Let's be represented by a good, strong, intelligent, experienced mom in the Texas House.
I'm Bruce Allen, and thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your views today. And I wanted to see if I can get a promise from you if you're elected. I think it is extremely important for all holders of office to come before their constituents, come before their voters, explain their views, advocate for their policies, and engage in intelligent dialogue about them. And that is not happening. So will you promise when you're elected, you'll show up for today?
Oh, absolutely. If you know anything about me, before I decided to run for office, I had big watching parties at my house. Residential, gubernatorial. We're going to have a party at Uncle Dan's where we're going to watch the gubernatorial debate later this month, and all of you guys are invited to attend. Now, I also plan on continuing to write my columns after I am elected. I probably will reduce it to once a month because this is really hard. But I made a promise that I would do it weekly, and so I'm doing it weekly. I will continue that, and another thing I will continue after I'm elected because it's been very precious to me, and that is continuing to visit churches throughout. I have visited all sorts of churches, want to continue to do that, but it has really helped me understand how we all worship our common creator. And church and religion is such an important part of my life and our community's life that I will continue writing, debating. We'll have town halls, especially would like to have town halls about women's reproductive health issues. Because I think we in McLennan County could lead on finding a solution to this, and I want to be one of those leaders.
On reproductive rights. As I drove here today, I saw a sign that reminded me of the old Bible verse about you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Well, the baby that I carried was fearfully and wonderfully made inside my fallopian tube. And I didn't know about it. And it grew and it grew and it grew until it died. And, you know, the rest is history. Almost died. The only thing that kept me from dying was the ability to sign a paper that said that they could stop the bleeding and terminate that pregnancy. Doc Anderson has misrepresented what ectopic pregnancies are. The whole movement now puts shame on those of us that had a baby that was going to kill us. I have granddaughters. I cannot imagine what it would be like. And I'm sitting here looking at that chair going, where are you, Doc? You heard it, the state of the state, state of the city, like you always are. You're not here today. Why are you not here to talk to us about what you said at the city council meeting about what that sort of procedure is about? He showed up at a dead man's funeral to give him a flag, but he won't show up to answer our questions. And I don't know about anybody else in this room, but I've had just about enough of Doc not showing up and saying one thing and doing another. And we know he's not going to be here. How are you going to represent us in Austin? All of us, the men, the women, the boys, the girls. How are you going to represent us to make us proud? I don't.
On the women's reproductive health.
Yes, on women's reproductive rights, because that's fundamental.
When I decided to run, it was because we were in the ice storm and 2 of my clients died. And I couldn't go to their funerals because we were in the middle of a pandemic and we hadn't had the vaccine yet. And I have a daughter with lung challenges, so getting COVID would have killed her. But then after I announced and the Dobbs decision came down, I really felt that it was almost like God was saying, yeah, I picked you at this moment, at this time to do this. And it was, I really just sat for 30 minutes quietly and sort of meditated, just prayed about, God, let me lead our community. Much more than being a lawyer for 40 years, being a woman, and having to make the tough reproductive health decisions that I've had to make for both me and Rich, make me the more qualified woman, candidate, if you will, to lead us. You know, I will go ahead and share with you. I've had an IUD. We were infertility patients. I had a miscarriage. I was told to have an abortion. These issues, and I said no. I said that earlier to the abortion, but I have lived these issues. And so as this is discussed in the next legislative session, there's 150 legislators in Austin, but there's only 38 women. And we need more women at the table, women like me that have lived. So we can see we're an almost 80-year-old veterinarian counting folks, or you can get a much younger mom who's made these decisions, and I'm proud of this decision. Thank you.
Hi,
Hey, Jen.
my name is Jeanette Bell. I'm president of Northeast Riverside Neighborhood Association for this side of Whitaker Drive, the part of LaSalle and Highway 6. And we are food, desert, pharmacy, desert, any kind of desert, we're the desert over here in Valley. I want to know, what would you do to address the issue of food insecurity?
In East Waco, I would stand with that gentleman right there who's going to represent East Waco if I've got anything to do with it, and fight for a grocery store in East Waco, to fight for better roads in East Waco. See, what Doc Anderson has done in dividing twice East Waco and ensuring that he does not represent East Waco and that East Waco is represented by someone hundreds of miles away is he's obviously hurt East Waco, but he's also hurt Waco, because East Waco is Waco. The community around Riker is Waco. The community around Sacred Heart Catholic Church is Waco. So when you divide a community, because what I love about Waco is its diversity, is the fact that we're different and that we live together peacefully. We have one city council that works together great. We have, and represents all of Waco. We have one county commissioner's court that represents all of McLennan County, works beautifully together. But Doc has insisted on racially dividing Waco and sending all of basically black and brown Waco, especially all of East Waco, to be represented by someone in College Station. And that means you haven't been represented. And that's bad. And that's racial discrimination. And that's offensive to me. And I would never do anything that would hurt our town like that. I'm offended by that. That's why I lobbied him, wrote a letter to the editor, testified on the redistrict committee. You can look it up on the Texas Waco trip. Stop gerrymandering Waco. It's what the editor said. And he ignored me. Didn't even write and say, hey, thanks for, expressing your opinion. I don't agree with it. Sort of like he did today, Mr. Silence. And that's hurting Waco. It's rude.
Hi, I'm Valerie Fillmore, and I have a question about, since the Supreme Court said that companies are people in Citizen United, what is your opinion on having these citizens pay their fair share of taxes?
Citizens pay their fair share of taxes. So corporations, are you talking like property taxes? Yes.
Well, the governor gets on and every day, oh, we're so proud that Tesla's coming here. Oh, we're so proud that another big company's coming here. And I know for a fact that they've given them huge tax breaks on their property that they put their business on and anything to get them to come here. So that's what I want to know. Are they ever going to be asked? Would you ask them to pay their fair share of taxes?
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think we were talking about it earlier. I definitely think we need to lower the taxes, the property taxes of us. When you're looking at a company like Walmart, who owns real estate, they can hire very expensive lawyers to litigate and get their property, their valuations down, so they pay less taxes. Then they're also given breaks to move here. And so that's why, that is exactly what you're addressing. Corporations don't pay their fair share. Whereas, us property owners and homeowners, we've got to pay our full share. My husband went and challenged, because disagreed with what the valuation was and won. But he's been a banker for 40 years, and he also remodels homes. That's what he does. We own real estate company now. But not everyone has that kind of knowledge and that kind of benefit. So I definitely, it's wonderful that we don't have a state income tax, but we're so heavily taxed on property taxes. And that hurts, not only hurts homeowners, but hurts renters too. Because when the owner who's renting the facility to the tenant has that big property tax bill, what does he do? He's got to turn it over, to the tenant to pay. So yes, I agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll have closing statements now from Commissioner Miller.
Good afternoon again. No, I guess I didn't read the paper right. I thought we were going to give you a closing summary statement.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yes.
So you have Dr. Kyle.
Closing statement from our candidate, Aaron Schmidt.
Our wonderful commissioner was going to give my closing statement. I was very interested. Well, first of all, thank you guys for organizing this. Thank you, David, for moderating it, giving me such tough questions. I really appreciate that. I love being challenged. I decided, as I said earlier, to run during the ice storm, and I have spent almost every waking minute since that time studying, learning, listening, praying, getting myself ready for this moment. And guys, I'm ready. I'm so excited about what I just know I can bring better leadership. Is it tough? Yes. When I went down and talked to both the Republicans and the Democrats about the next session, they were saying it's going to be tough. You're going to have 5 months of hell. You're not going to see much of your family. and you're gonna make $600 a month for doing it. Now, when you're in session, they give you a little per diem, because you're living in Austin, which is not exactly cheap, you know. But I'm ready. Like I said, I really think that I can give new leadership and good leadership to our community. And I think it's so important that Waco be represented by a woman now, a qualified woman now. So for the women of McLennan County and the men who love them, please vote for Aaron Shank on a conversion.
I thank Ms. Shane for being with us this afternoon. And as I give my closing statements, just one thing I wanted to add, as one of the voting members of the Newton County Commission for Precinct 2, and the area that I cover is all of East Waco, and it's the inner parts of North Waco and South Waco. And it is all of eastern rural McLennan County, and that includes Mart, Riesel, Hallsburg, Axtell, and Elk. It is 66% minority. And when they cut my precinct out of House District 56, because that's what they cut out, with the exception of Riesel, which stayed in 56 in McLennan County, but they cut out my commissioner's precinct and those 66% minority citizens that I represent and put them in the newly created House District 13, along with the southern tip of Precinct 3. But we're not dismayed. We thank the NAACP for filing a lawsuit on those lines that were drawn in 2010. And what we ask is just to be heard. Whoever goes down and represent that include Mr. Davis and Mr. Davis. And what I can say, it was refreshing to listen to a wife, a mother, a college educated woman, also with common sense and who has been life tested. And so we have to do our part, and that is we have to get out and vote. November 8th with early voting starting October the 24th, running through November 4th. It was a pleasure to have you all today. I hope you heard something that will convict you to vote for Ms. Shane, or you heard something that confirmed why you will vote for Ms. Shane. But we do thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And we ask that you all take a seat. We have a second candidates forum with House District candidate, Mr. Cedric Davis for House District 13. So you may go as far as that door. The restrooms are to your left. There's water here. You may mix and mingle, but we will start promptly at 4 o'clock.
This is the third one.
Yeah, we have time for the chair. It's spelled right.
Cedric, that went well. So if you can just keep it like that, that works well. Just keep it running. For anybody who may be there watching this event on YouTube Live, stay tuned for the next debate with Cedric Davis and Angela Orr if she participates. Thank you. There you go, Cedric.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Make what video? What? There it is. Can you see me now? I see it. I can start like this. Okay.
What about the view? Okay, all right.
I wasn't the first one down.
A bit louder. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Texas House District 13 Candidates Debate. It is hosted, sponsored by SDEC 22 Committee Man Tom Hansen. Tom was unable to attend this afternoon's debates due to COVID, and he asked me to substitute for him, which actually he brought along some cohorts back there to help set up and do things this afternoon. Ernest Brister and the Vierges and Pollyanna and Daniel here in the front doing video for us. They came from Hill County today, and we appreciate them coming because it takes that many to substitute when you're trying to fill in for Tom Hansen. My name is Mary Mann. I'm the McLennan County Democratic Party Secretary, and I'm excited to have you all here today attending, and a special thank you to our moderators, Judge Overstreet here, and David Schleicher just had to leave, and all of the candidates. First, a little housekeeping business. Both the Republican and the Democratic candidates were invited to participate. We do have an empty chair, but we will continue with our questions. The purpose of the candidate debate is to give House District 13 voters an opportunity to hear candidates discuss issues of importance to them in this election. It's a wonderful opportunity for you, the voters, to learn where the candidates stand on the issues facing House District 13 and all Texans. The debate will be video recorded and the media invited to attend. Time limits for all comments will be strictly enforced. In fairness to candidates and the audience, we ask that these limits be respected. Let me back up just a second and say that video recording will be available on the SD22 Texas Facebook page if you're interested and want to share it. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening remarks to introduce themselves. The moderator will then ask a question so that we can address as many questions as possible in the time available. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. If time permits, candidates will also have 3 minutes for a closing statement. A timekeeper will hold up signs to indicate when you have 1 minute remaining, 15 seconds remaining, and then to stop. All candidates will rotate the order in which they respond to questions. No booing or heckling, please. Not allowed in this room. I will have to ask you to leave. I would now like to introduce someone I'm very pleased to know and honored to have as my commissioner. I would like to introduce Commissioner Pat Chisenmiller.
She's really trying to work with me. I'm not following any of her instructions today, but I said I was going to stay down here. Good afternoon. It is a pleasure again to be with you all. For those of you all who are new to the 4 o'clock session, good afternoon. And welcome to the 4 o'clock candidates forum. For those of you all who are new, you were here at 2:30. I'll give you my welcome speech. Welcome to McLennan County. If you have never been here before, we ask that you please take in some of the great restaurants and other sites. If it's been a while since you've been here, you will see that Waco and McLennan County has really changed. So we do want to extend that out to you. And welcome. The 4 o'clock session will highlight the candidate in the Texas House District 13 race vying for your support on your November 8th general ballot, and that is Mr. Cedric Davis, who is running as the Democrat. And you may clap that. And Miss Angelia Ford, and she is not here. The moderator for this afternoon session is a man that I have admired over 2 decades. It is the Honorable Judge Morris L. Overstreet. Judge Overstreet was the first African-American elected to statewide office in the history of Texas in 1990, when he was elected to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, and not to date himself or me, but I met him when he was a judge. He goes back. He provides more than 45 years of experience in the public and private sector as an attorney and a businessman, and we are very honored and lucky to have him for this afternoon session. At this time, I will turn the microphone over to Judge Overstreet and Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, good afternoon. As introduced, my name is Morris Overstreet. I'm very happy to be able to moderate this 4 o'clock session. We have some tough questions for you, Mr. Davis. You have a time limit, but I think you can handle it, what I've seen so far. First question I have, and the audience would really love to know. State your name, your background, why you're running, and more importantly, why the voters of District 13 should vote for you. Can you do that in 3 minutes?
Yes, sir. It's a lot, but I'll cram it in there. I'm Cedric Davis. I am about to be 56 years old. I'm the current city manager of Marlin, Texas. 2018, I ran for Texas governor. I was the 3rd person in the primary, so I came close, but didn't get it. I'm a retired police chief, a former public educator, and I was the first African-American mayor of Balch Springs, Texas. I've been living in Marlin coming up on my 4th year now. I am proud to be
a Marlonite, adopted Marlonite. I am proud to be from a rural area, and I'm proud to be a representative of House District 13. So when I go around the district and talk to people, I'm listening to the issues. I'm not creating my own issues. I'm listening to the people issues. And like, we have food desert problems. We have lack of economic development problems. We have poverty problems. We have a lot of problems, but I also have solutions. I've always been taught, if you have a problem, don't just cry about the problem, find a solution to get it fixed. I'm also a Desert Storm veteran, and in the military, they taught us, fix it, move on, and then go to the next mission. So that is, I'm also a father of 5, and I have 3 grandchildren. And I am proud to say that I am happy to be here among you today. I hope to do you guys proud in Austin, Texas. Well, I know that the residents of District 13 have expressed many issues to you, but after listening to your constituents, what do you see as the most pressing issue facing District 13? And if you're elected, or when you're elected, let's just say that, that sounds better. And when you're elected, how do you intend to solve that problem? Well, there are actually, Judge, there's actually several, because House District 13 is a diverse district. So there's a couple of things. Number one, they talk about the lack of jobs, the lack of food, the lack of Medicaid expansion, because we have hospitals closing, or we have no healthcare services at all. When I go to a certain side of town, it may be that, well, my vote don't count. So voter suppression, they got to continue to do things. So why should I get off the sofa and go vote? So things like that are the main things. So when I go, I'm looking to stand up for people's right to vote. I'm looking to stand up for women's right to make a decision of their own on a reproduction system. And I'm also looking to bring economic development and fix the infrastructure that is well needed throughout District 13. You know, in each legislative session, public education takes a huge part of the budget. And historically, public education has been funded through local property taxes and funding from the state of Texas. The funding from the state of Texas is continuing to decline. How do you intend to address that problem? And also this issue called Robin Hood, in which they take money from the rich districts and give it to the poor districts, even though the rich districts are not really rich and the poor districts are not really poor. Well, what I would like to do is, first of all, I want to start reducing taxes from those property owners. I want to take that burden off them. And how we do that is we have to come up with different resources. People might not like the idea of legalizing marijuana, but we're one of the few states remaining that has not done it. They make billions annually. In the 7 months Colorado started theirs, they made over $600 million in that amount of time. California makes billions annually. So why should we not go ahead and tax it, put it to use? Because Colorado and some of these other states are building schools, hospitals, fire stations, and police stations, things like that. They put it to use. Another thing is, I think they should have so many legalized or regulated casinos. Instead of us taking that money to Vegas, taking that money to Oklahoma, Mexico, places like that, keep our Texas dollars here. That is another source of income. Close some of the loopholes that we give these corporations 30 and 35-year tax abatements. Those companies that's making more than $100 million annually should have a public education. Most of all, let's stop the charter school, giving these charter schools an opportunity in this voucher system, because everybody knows in the public school system, butts and seats learning equal dollars for the public school. A poor school system loses money when a child goes off to charter school or voucher freedom of choice. So I think that's how we raise resources. That's how we can fund public education. Give retired teachers a pay increase that they haven't had in almost 20 years, and also increase salaries of teachers. Well, let's stay with public education for just another couple of questions. You touched upon vouchers and you touched upon charter schools. What's your position on giving monies to parents in the form of a voucher and then allowing them to choose where their child should go to school?
I still don't agree with that, Judge, because we're gonna use Marlin for example. Marlin is about 800 to 900 students. Now, if a parent get a voucher, they may want to take their child over to Waco. Then what if 50 other children follow in the Waco? Marlin, I think, will surely close because the lack of students in the seat. Like I said, butts in seats learning, equal dollars. I know because I was a teacher for 8 years. So I'm not a proponent of the voucher system, and I'm not a great proponent of the charter system because it takes butts out of seats.
Okay. Now, public education, let's go to higher education. And there's been a lot of talk about higher education, debt forgiveness, loan forgiveness. What's your position on higher education and whether or not every child who graduates from a high school should be entitled to a free education at the higher education level, at least to a bachelor's?
I support it because the school district I taught in, which is going on ISD, most of our students graduated in 2 years. So that means that was 2 years they had to go to, after they left high school, they would have their full year college degree. I think that is a great tool for getting children educated. But I also think we need to go a little bit further. That needs to apply toward those children want to learn a trade or a skill. So if they go into a trade skill, we should be able to pay for that as well. That's what I believe we should do.
Okay, so you're a big proponent of trade skill.
Yes, sir.
Or trade school.
Trade school.
Well, with gun violence increasing, and we've seen a lot of that. I recently read some articles about is arming school teachers the best way to solve gun violence in our schools. What do you think?
No, as a long-time law enforcement, retired police chief, and worked in the schools for 8 years, I had an opportunity to talk to my fellow constituents as teachers, and even before I was a teacher as a police officer when I came to do school resource. A lot of the teachers don't want to be armed. Second of all, that's additional training. Now you're asking them to be police officers and put their lives on the line at every minute. And they don't want to do that. They feel that they have a full-time job and extra, basically being a teacher and a parent. So now they don't want the title of police officer today.
Well, how do you solve the problem?
Well, the problem is, one, I think you need more guidance and mental counselors in the school system. You need, of course, you need school resource officers. It's good to have to make sure they're properly trained, properly equipped, and they know how to monitor situations. Make sure we have all the security technical tools that's available to us to put into the schools. And we have some type of program like tip lines when students hear something. It's just like a Crime Stoppers, okay? And when I was police chief, we had it in the school system, and they still have it in some schools. Children, if the things that they give us or tips they give the police officer fans out, then they'll get a reward in some of the
See something, say something.
Yes, sir. See something, say something.
Incentivize those who see something to say something.
If it's factual,
Okay.
they don't get it straight up. It has to be, it has to be.
Okay. All right. Since we're talking about guns, and that's been a big issue. First of all, I have several questions in this area. Tell us what your position is on the Second Amendment right to bear arms. You for it, against it?
I'm for it, but I'm also for common sense gun laws.
Okay. What about a ban on military style assault weapons?
If you're under age 21, my belief is you shouldn't own one. Because you have to be 21 to buy a pack of cigarettes. You have to be 21 to drink. So I can't figure out if you can do those things, how can you go buy an AR-15, which is a killing machine?
Okay. So your position is we should ban military style assault weapons in terms of purchase to those under the age of 21.
Yes, I think it should be regulated where you have to be 21 and up to purchase an AR-15.
Now let's talk about other gun laws that are in effect. Texas is considered, kind of the wild, wild west. And the present governor has enacted laws that basically say that anyone who wants to buy a gun can buy a gun. Anyone who wants to carry a gun can carry a gun. Give us an idea of your feelings on anyone being able to purchase just a handgun and open carry. If you're for it, tell us why. If you're against it, tell us why. If it's some hybrid, tell us what that is. And how do you plan to tweak the problem?
I think as a regular citizen, me as a longtime law enforcement person, I think open carry is a problem. Many of the police associations that I have belonged to, and many of my friends and family that are law enforcement officers, we have a problem because now any and everybody can carry. You don't know who's a felon. You don't know who's actually been trained. Open carry, basically, anyone can put a strap of gun on, never had any training. So as a law enforcement officer, when I place a round downfield, I have to know what the target is. If I'm not properly trained or licensed and I place a round downfield, I may take out Aaron. The bullet may go over this way.
Please don't take out Aaron.
Yeah, we need Aaron. Yeah, we need you, Aaron. No. But I just feel that was a bad line. I do not in the world understand how it passed when so many law enforcement agencies stood up against it.
Okay.
Well, yes, I can. All right.
A powerful gun law.
Yes,
And maybe the people need to have a powerful lobbyists and,
that's what me and Aaron are.
okay, good, great. Powerful lobbyists and legislators. All right, great. What is your position on climate change? Is this a hoax or not? If you believe there is climate change, tell us why you believe that. If you believe that it's not, tell us why you believe it's not. We're not subject to climate change.
Climate change is real. The hoax or the big lie that they have put out for years. That's fake. Because climate change is real. And I'm gonna give you a perfect example. Marlin has two lakes, a big lake and a small lake. If you go out to our big lake, which sits up here, I can walk across it as a field, a grass field. That's because this drought this year was so hot, it dried up the lake. So climate change is real. When people are having to ration water, or where it's flooding where it's normally warm, or where it's warm where it's normally cold, that's real. And I believe it's because we have made so many machineries and different pollutants to the earth. I believe man is destroying the earth. So I believe climate change is real.
Okay. Well, earlier you said it's not enough to just point out the problem, right? So now tell us what your solution is.
Okay, that's perfect. I like EVs, like electronic vehicles, electrical vehicles. I like solar, wind energy, biofuels. I'm the vice president of the Central East Texas Alliance, which sits from Highway 6 all the way down to College Station, all the way down to Bay. That is a biofuel industry, and medical corridor. That is all about research into how do we make the earth better? How do we fuel our future economy without destroying the earth? And that's what these big time schools and in between is research. So put dollars into research on those particular items I just mentioned, and make sure we follow through with it and not let it be reversed. And how we prevent it from being reversed is everyone get out in November and vote Democrat, so the Republican cannot reverse it, because Joe Biden has put it in play that with this research that's going to happen.
Okay. Well, I thought those big wind turbines, I thought they said those kill birds and stuff.
That's if the bird go flying too. But I think now some of them do go up next, but not as many birds fly into it.
Okay. Well, what is your basic position on tax giveaways? Someone asked a question in a previous session about businesses and corporations being enticed to relocate to Texas or relocate to certain communities under the promise that they're going to create jobs and they get a tax abatement, pay taxes, property taxes, and then they don't even create the jobs. Tell us what your overall position is and how you intend to fix that. And that may be perception.
Well, it happens in some places. I deal with that in my regular day job because we do give incentives for companies to come relocate and to bring jobs. Reason why we try to bring jobs is to put our citizens to work, to also bring jobs and revenues and tax dollars. What I don't like doing is giving some of these corporations get 35 and 40-year tax breaks. Well, that means the citizens never collect on what they're giving away. My stance, and it has always been since I've been mayor, city manager, and pretty much my adult manager, like no more than 10 years tax abatements. So the citizens can start recuperating some of those dollars much faster. That's my belief. I also believe if a company makes more than $100 billion, they should be able to have what I call a public education fee. That way they help put into the school system, even if they don't have children, but they still need to put back into the school system. Because I guarantee you some of their workers will have children.
Well, it always just seemed to me as a regular Joe Blow citizen that if you had a great idea, why can't you just go to the bank and borrow? Why do you need a city or a county or the state to give you money to open up your business?
Well, because the bank wants you to have some skin into it, and they're not going to be quickly to give you that money. Whereas municipalities and government entities who have very deep pockets, if it's a great idea, if it benefits, this is the way it should work. If it benefits the citizenry, then they're willing to invest. So in the long run, it becomes more beneficial to the people of the area, which are the corporation.
All right, so you believe there should be some connection with the idea of the business and their performance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what if a business is not performing the way that they said they were going to perform when they asked for and were given the tax base?
That's why we have the covenants. In your agreement with them, you put in their performance reviews by that municipality because those are taxpayers' dollars. And you want to be able to track that and make sure that you're getting what you said that those taxpayers' dollars are going to be spent on. So that's why you put the performance reviews in it, have those checks and balances. And if they don't perform, you give them a probationary period to perform that. And if not, then you breach that contract and OU.
Okay, so let's go to another topic that's a pretty hot topic in America today. And yesterday, last week, and last year. There's a lot of talk about our immigration policy.
Yes.
And so let's just start first with a simple question. Whose job is it, according to you? The state or the federal?
Federal government.
All right. So what do you think and what would you do when elected as a legislator with Abbott's use of hundreds of millions of dollars to station DPS troopers and the Texas National Guard at the border to enforce border policies that you say belong to the federal government?
Well, I got a problem with it because between 2007 and about around 2012, there was only $110 million for the state to take care of the border issue. Well, since Abbott got in office and over the past 3 years, they're spending $2 billion with a B annually for a total of $6 billion. And that money comes from the Texas Department of Human Health Services. So in other words, it's taking away opportunities for housing, food, medical, things like that from Texas. So he can put his guys on the border, which my personal belief is, if we give people from other countries the avenue to come in, majority of the time they'll do it the right way. But when you make it harder for them to come in, then of course they're going to try to find a shortcut. And I think that's what's been happening. when they put the hold on dock and things like that, to me, I think that was wrong. If you really go back to, when I was in school, we were the great melting pot. And they used to have the guy that come when they go into the Statue of Liberty and the bill, and the little bill. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't remember the time. Sorry about that. But I believe it's fixable, and Texas legislators can fix it.
Okay. Well, I heard you mention earlier, I didn't ask the question, but you mentioned it, but I now want to answer. There was a time when possession of one marijuana cigarette could land a person in prison for life. And I heard you say that you believe we should legalize marijuana. Do you place, tell me honors, do you place any limitations on that? Can I just have a truckload full of marijuana and it's okay, or?
No, sir. I think the legislation need to come up with what they consider a legal usable amount, maybe 2 ounces, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if it's under 2 ounces, it's a misdemeanor anyway. So I think maybe we should limit about 2 ounces right over there and legalize it.
Okay, so if you legalize marijuana, you said tax it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you mean like
Dispensaries.
dispensaries? I mean, I couldn't go in a local grocery store and buy.
Oh, no, sir.
Oh, okay.
No, legalize dispensaries.
Oh, dispensaries, and so people would go to dispensaries
Yes, sir.
and buy a small portion of marijuana, and that would be legal.
Yes, sir. I have family in Vegas. I mean, you go in there, they got cakes, donuts. I've seen different flavors. Now I don't partake, so y'all got it on record. I don't partake. But my future son-in-law works in a dispensary in Las Vegas.
And you believe that would be enough to help generate enough tax revenues to?
I believe so, because Texas, let's use Colorado. Like I said, in the first 7 months, they made about 600 million. Okay, and we're much larger than Colorado. Let's compare us to California, which is a large state. They making billions, about 2 billion. So yes, and they're doing a whole lot with their money. They're making money.
Well, let me ask you, let's talk about statewide politics. And you have a group of guys in office now. We have the big three, they've been there for a little while, at least 2 terms each. First of all, do you support your gubernatorial nominee?
Oh, yes, been knowing him for, coming up on 6 years now.
Okay, other than knowing him for 6 years, tell the audience why you support him.
Well, like I said, I've been knowing Beto for 6 years. When I ran for governor, it was running against Ted Cruz. We got an opportunity to get to know each other personally as friends. We talk on the phone sometimes. Funny guy, truly likes to skateboard and eat Whataburger. And he can get a little hot if you push him, but it takes a lot to push him to that edge. He's a special person. So I think he's good for the people because he knows how to be a part of the people. And I've seen him be a part of the people. So believe it or not, he's similar to me where I don't have to see alphabets behind a name. And I treat everybody the same until they show me their character is different. And I believe that's what he is, and I think he'll make a great governor.
Let's talk about, and I don't know if this is a big problem in your district, but what are your thoughts, what are your feelings about mass transit?
Well, I spent almost 8 years, 8.5, almost 8.5 years with North Transit Police Department. I think mass transit is beneficial for real large urban areas, but for rural, mass transit don't fit because it's not enough riders. Now there needs to be transit for rural, but not mass transit.
Okay, so you don't believe mass transit would necessarily fit that model would fit right for you?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, I fly a lot between Houston and Austin, Houston and Dallas. It takes me almost an hour to get to the airport. I say get there an hour, take a flight 40 minutes. But, I mean, by that time, I could have really driven to Austin. So what are your thoughts about high-speed rail between major metropolitan areas in Texas?
Now, I support high-speed rail to major metropolitan area. The original high-speed rail committee, I actually saw.
And how would that benefit the average Texan?
If the average Texan in a rural area wants to go to a big urban city to visit friends or family, or even just a weekend shopping, they can be there in a matter of minutes.
Now, I know how it would benefit me, but I was just curious how it would benefit somebody who wasn't even close to a major city.
Just for a matter of fact.
Now, I know your opponent is not here. Have you met your opponent?
Yes.
Okay. If your opponent was here and pretends that she is, ask your opponent a question.
Angela, why did you take that 5,000 from the charter school pack?
What is that?
That's $5,000 she took from the charter school pack. If she says that she's pro public schools, then to me, she would have known charter schools hurt public schools. If you took that money, are you beholden to them? Or are you beholden to the children?
What's your position on, you talked about jobs. And there are a lot of people here who probably have small business. I know the candidate for District 56, they have a small business. I'm a small business person. And while the minimum wage increase sounds good, sometimes it can hurt small business.
Yes.
Because most people don't realize you have employees, you not only have to pay them the wage, you have the benefits, the withholding, the Medicare contributions, the whole works. Okay, what's your position on increasing the minimum wage and why?
Well, to me, it needs to be because the last time they increased it was in 1996. That was to 7.25. You can't live on 7.25. You have to put that 3 times just to even make a decent. Okay, so I am definitely for increasing it. I know it adds a burden on the business owner because they will have to increase for the services they provide. But if the economy is zooming and everything's working the way it should, those resources will be available because businesses will be doing business all over.
All right, so give us a figure. It's easy to say I support an increase of, okay, $7.75 until we go to $8. That's an increase.
So I'll tell you what we did in the city of Marlin. Okay, most analysts said a livable wage is from $13 to $15 an hour. And if you notice when Bernie Sanders ran for president, that was a big issue. Well, in Marlin last year, we made sure our minimum, anybody get hired, the minimum is $13.50. We couldn't do the 15, but we were able to make sure that we streamlined and did a good budget. We saved a lot, so we were able to do a minimum of $13.50 an hour, which is in that what they call a livable wage. It's well above the $7.25.
You know, we've talked about public education, higher education, how much money that takes, and how much comes out of the state budget. But before you get to that, I mean, you talk about the Department of Human Services that provide, kind of medical care, basic medical care, Medicare, Medicaid contribution, those kinds of things. What's your position on expanding Medicare?
Well, we need to expand it because we left $100 billion, not billion, $1 billion on the table. Also, if we expand it and accept it, we will get $5 to $6 billion annually. We send that money up, but we're not getting it back. But believe it or not, Republicans on the other side are now opening their eyes, and a lot of them will say, well, maybe, Mr. Governor, you might want to look at taking that money because they're taking a butt kicking because we need it. And especially in the area I represent, we got rural hospitals closing. We don't have ambulatory care It takes an ambulance an hour to get there. Like I've told my story before, I had an 84-year-old man down in my home. And me being a cop soldier, that was the first death that actually affected me where I cried. And I normally don't do that. But that man didn't have to die long if we could have got an ambulance there faster. Even a helicopter was going to take an hour and 15 minutes. Out in the rural areas, there are volunteer firefighters, things like that, where they're paying for their own gear and their own stuff. I think the state should put them under the forestry service. If we get Medicaid expansion, some of those dollars can go towards that. There's a lot we can do with the money that we're leaving on the table as a legislator. We work with Republicans, Democrats, and Independents to get it where we can accept that money and put that money to use where these hospitals don't have to close and some of these rural areas can have the services they need.
Now, we recognize that the Democrats, even when you and Aaron win, if just the two of you win, the Democrats will still be in a minority in the Texas House of Representatives, right?
But we need 9 seats.
But that's just two. I said, it's just you two win, it's still going to be a minority. So that means that you're going to have to work across the aisle.
Yes.
And I don't know if others are working as close as the two of you all are. You all seem to be working pretty close together, and that's a good thing. So, who do you know? Who are you going to work with? Who can be your go-to buddy on the other side that will listen to you and maybe agree with some of your ideas?
To be honest with you, I only know one in the House, and that's Kyle Pasella, who's my current representative. Like I said, out of my 4 years, I may have had an opportunity to communicate with Kyle 4 or 5 times. But he's approachable. When I come to talk to him, at least he's approachable. Do we have the same thought pattern? I don't believe so, but I believe if I'm there in the seat and he has to see me every day, yes, we'll be able to collaborate.
Okay, so are you promising the members of your district that you're going to make an attempt to reach across the aisle to work with the Republicans to get things done that have a positive effect in your district?
Yes, I've throughout my whole political career, I've always been a collaborator, a bridge builder. So yes.
Now, before I ask my last question, I'm going to give the audience an opportunity to ask you some questions. Okay, so audience will give you an opportunity to ask some questions of your candidate for House District 13, Mr. Cedric Davis, and then I'll ask some closing questions, and then you'll have an opportunity to make the closing argument.
Hi, I have a question. When you raised the wage line to $13.50, did the businesses in town notice that there was just more people who were willing to spend money there? I mean, it improved the economy in this town because there were more people in the town that actually had money that they weren't spending on rent or necessities.
Well, how we was able to do it, we actually did it on the same budget, but myself and my staff, we took a look at where we could streamline some things. Like I'll give you an example, chemicals for our plant. We went with a different product, do the same job of $50,000, $60,000 cheaper. We looked at paying off some bills early, so we got out of debt that we before I got there, so we paid it off. So we knocked our debt down. Yeah, it did 2 things. Took our debt down, but it took our credit up to A- versus we was down to a D. Things like that. This is how we was able to. We had the money there. It was just in how you manage the money, how you spent the money. So that's how we were able to do it. Now, for as business-wise, Marlin has had. We did a recent study. Marlin has had a small uptick in business growth. So, and now that I'm actually out there, what I call shopping Marlin. I'm contacting business all over the world. We've had somebody come in from Spain, we had a group come in from China, Brazil, and here locally from different states, New Mexico, for example. So I'm out there making sure I'm putting that town on the map. And when I become state rep, I'm going to put that district on my back and put it on the map and make sure these people know about Central Texas, and how it's a great place for you to start your business, or how it's a great place for you to relocate your business. Because we do have a ready workforce. Now, down in Marlin is more labor than technical, but up here in East Waco and the Waco areas and Hill County areas, things like that, it's more, they have more technical. So the whole district combined, we can do it.
Mr. Davis, Sharon Berry again. My question is about veterans, and you addressed a lot of it. So what is the status of veterans in your area, i.e., do you have a large homeless population, unemployed, and how are you addressing them?
Well, for veterans in our area, homeless, we just began to see a few homeless people right now. And a couple of them I actually had an opportunity to talk, and they were veterans, but they actually came up from Waco because they got recommended to come to Marlin, and they've been there, so that they're making Marlin there. I want to address it because from my understanding, we have a developer that's actually looking to come to turn our old VA into like a psychiatric hospital for veterans. I had the opportunity to have 2 meetings with them so far. They've had their team to come through and look at the building. So it's an ongoing works, and they're pretty sure that it's going to open within the next 1 or 2 years. So I'm gonna do whatever I can to help them open that psychiatric hospital.
So you don't have a big unemployment?
No, ma'am.
Question for me, would you describe the new House District 13 to all of us, please?
Yes, House District 13 has Falls, that's Falls County. It has Boston County, Hill, East Waco, which is the eastern part of McClellan County, Limestone, Freestone, Leon. That's it.
So a widespread area.
Yes, ma'am.
From
It's
Bosque all the way.
all the way down, like I said, to Leon, which is not that far from Houston.
Luciana Sanchez Miramontes.
Hey, there.
Hello, and my question to you, and you spoke on it a little bit, is when folks have committed a crime and done their time, we should educate them on their voter rights doctrine. Would you be willing to sponsor a bill or co-write a bill for felons to have their voter rights restored to them?
Yes, ma'am. I would, because believe it or not, they actually, after 5 years served, they have all rights restored unless they did a violent crime or involved a weapon. Then it can't, but other than that, they do. But the problem is, they're not educated on it to know, because no one's telling them that. Only very few of them know. So yes, I would like to sponsor a bill where we put some dollars into educating them. One, we want to educate them before they leave, and then keep up with them where we can send out flyers or whatever to educate them while they're out. So they know when that 5-year hit, you're always forgiven. Unless, like I said, it's a violent felony. Yes, sir.
I have a question for you, Cedric. I know you said you are a former police officer and you're currently the city manager of Marlin.
Yes.
As a former small business owner myself, and currently I'm a self-employed small business contractor, I actually had a question for you. With the average police response time being 12 minutes, there's been a lot of questions. That has been, what's the word? Like, there's a lot of questions that are up there with guns, exactly.
Yeah,
So
12 minutes is considered slow.
my biggest question to you is, as a legal gun owner, and yes, I'm carrying right now, no problem doing that. I licensed to carry, I have governor's insurance, but with the average response time of the 12 minutes, do you believe I have a right to protect my family, my property, my life, if it's an immediate danger, considering the average police response time in Texas with the recent survey was 2017. With 2017 was 12 minutes of an average police response time. How do you feel about that and why?
Well, if they take that long, and I can only go by, I'll give you 2 scenarios, because Dallas is a big city, Marlin is a small one. In Marlin, my guys can be there in 2 to 3 because it's so small. Dallas, their response time is 7 to 9. Okay, of course it gets there slower, but on average. But yes, I believe you should be able to have a right to carry, because like you said, you've been trained, you're licensed, and yes, you have a right to self-protection and protection of your family, just like the council doctrine in your house and in your home. So those are yes, sir, I support that.
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Yes.
How do you? So if you support that, if it's something, there's a lot of everything going on, like gun violence, non-gun violence, I know it's brought up with educators being able to carry. I'm a former substitute teacher at Robinson. Yes, there is staff at Robinson ISD that do carry. School, I believe carries, I believe there's some schools out in that area.
It's some.
Falls County. So you actually don't ever see any violence, major mass shootings or violence happening at the schools. There might be isolated incidents. I know a couple years ago, there was an incident where a senior unfortunately committed suicide at Robinson. That's a mental health issue, which we touched base on that as well. But how do you plan on, I guess, arguing that, considering that you said you're against teachers doing?
I am still against teachers, going to be against teachers because I was a teacher and I was a cop. And teachers are there to teach. They go to school to teach, to educate. They don't go to school to shoot students. That's what the police are trained, because let me tell you something on the police side. I have one or two seconds to make a decision because they're well trained. If I'm a teacher and I got a shiny new toy, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. Will I panic or will I shoot to kill?
Well, those are where the isolated incidents.
Well, you never, but see, what you're talking about, actually, I'm talking about real life within there. What you're talking about is what can happen or what could have happened.
What could?
Yes, so what I'm telling you is, when you start arming all these teachers, which I guarantee you, I've been a member of ATPE, and if you go to ATF and all these here, ask them. They've done studies on it. Majority of their members says no. I was one of those members. I definitely said no because I was on both sides.
Which, can I ask you one last
Hold
follow-up?
on, let me finish the question for you. I like conversation. Come on, let me finish.
Sorry about that.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to show you something. Those who armed as a teacher, those are marshals. The district sends them off to an academy to teach them. So technically, they are school teachers / police officers or resource officers because they are called school marshals. So they just don't give a teacher gun. Now the scenario you gave is like a teacher, but it just with a gun. So they are well trained, like I'm saying. Now a lot of these teachers don't want to take that extra training because, like you said, one, you've already put parenting on them as well as teachers. Now you're gonna put policing on them.
So one quick follow-up question, with the schools that actually are do that, Cedric? Again, I'm not trying to pop it.
No, I love debate.
With the school district that does allow
Yeah.
our staff to carry, I am actually for it.
Yeah, I'm for this, what I just said. I'm for it because they've been marshals. They are marshals. The scenario when you first gave it, you said teachers.
So yes, that was bad.
Okay.
But
If they had to train as teachers.
the schools that actually are allowing it, you think like Robinson, their teachers actually go through a rigorous training process at Hardin.
Now, if you say it like that,
Teachers actually
yes.
doing that, that's why I think this question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks. Sorry, Cedric.
Mr. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Texas is expanding in population.
Yes.
We just found out that Hispanic Americans are now at 40%.
Yep.
And our African Americans are tipping at 16%. There are more African Americans in Texas than in any other state in the United States. And because of the Magnolia effect here, McLennan County is certainly growing in all of these communities. What I wanted to know, because the millennials, the people 25 to 45, are the largest cohort group since us baby boom. And I want to know, what is your word to 25 to 45-year-olds who now vote and who all of these issues with the Democratic Party support is touching them, whether it's abortion or schools or guns or property ownership. So what do you say to this large group of voters? And they're gonna vote this time around because they've been mad from Trayvon Martin to George Bush. So what's your message to them? And they live in urban and rural Texas in your new district 13.
I'm going to represent them very well. because I have lived their life. I've lived urban, I've lived rural. As a police officer, I've seen it all. I'm experienced in life and in professionally as what the things that they're going to do need. So they're gonna need a voice down there that knows how to work with them. And that's who I am. I'm the person that's gonna work with them. I'm the person that's gonna go out and listen to them. And together, we're gonna find solutions that I can sponsor bills that's going to meet the needs of the people in that category. So like I said, it's good to have a person who has lived that life that you have lived to be your representative. My opponent has not lived that life. My opponent, we got to use Corbett, for example. She made a comment, well, within 24 hours, she got her shot and she was treated for COVID and she thought everybody else in the district, oh, it didn't happen to everybody else in the district? No, not where we from, it didn't happen. Things like that is being out of touch. And I'm a person that tries to stay in touch because I like people, so I like to talk to people and I like to talk. So I travel to meet the people in their front doors. Yes, ma'am.
Cedric, would you, as a girl dad, talk to us on reproductive rights?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'll give you two things. I'm talking about reproductive rights and LGBT. I have a daughter that's LGBT. And when she came out, I'm like, you know, I didn't raise you like that because I was raised Baptist. But I said, you know what, baby? I'm still gonna love you because you're dead, baby. Who you love, that's fine. But don't bring all the girls in my house, just bring one if I like them. That was real talk. And she had a great young lady she was dating. Also on the reproductive, what I feel, and like I think you've been to some places where I tell everybody, one, I don't have a woman, so I shouldn't be making a decision on a woman. The other one is, I don't get why you got all these old men sitting up on this horseshoe making decisions for a woman, and I want to produce a child. Okay. Next one is, I am a 2-time prostate cancer survivor. Okay, and anybody know the prostate deals with the male sexual organ. Well, so does the womb. Do I want a woman telling me I couldn't get that prostate removed? Hell no, because I'll be dead if I do. So I don't think I should be able to tell her how to control the womb or when she should have a child. And my problem is they so restrictive in Texas, if a girl gets raped, guess what? She got to bear a rapist child. But they don't tell you how they're going to take care of that child when the child's here. They forgot to tell everybody about that portion. Can't put them in foster care because foster care broke. Talk about, oh, somebody going to adopt them. Well, the adoption system is broken. So how are you going to take care of the children that you forcing these women to have babies?
Are there any other questions? Judge Overstreet, I believe you had one, right?
Well, someone asked my question, but this is really your opportunity to make your closing statement. In terms of telling us what you're going to do to ensure that the vote turns out to vote for candidates like you and Aaron. That's the last question I have. What are you going to do to turn out the vote, to increase the enthusiasm? And then after that, your closing statement.
Well, what I'm going to do is keep knocking doors, keep visiting different communities. Like I told you earlier, I put thousands since this past year. I put thousands of miles crisscrossing the district. The district is a large district, but I have enjoyed meeting new people. I have new friends and new places. Just hearing the people words of what's happening or what they need in their community, it excites me. I didn't just jump in this race. I don't consider myself a politician. Politicians are lie, cheat, steal. I consider myself a statesman because you know why? A statesman works hard, a statesman sweats, bleeds, and cries. And I've done that ever since I was 11 years old. It has not changed me. I have not changed. Even coming from urban to rural, I'm still the same old guy that's going to fight for people. I love people. You might not disagree. I mean, you might not agree with me. You might disagree with me. But at the end of the day, we're still human. You have a right to voice your opinion, just like I have my right. And hopefully we can find common ground.
Okay. Well, now, your closing statement.
My closing statement to you guys is, guys, gear up. Get your family and your friends involved in this race. This race is going to change our country. Some people are always going to be 2024. No, it's not. Because if we lose all these seats in 2022, our little orange friend will be back and he will gerrymander the judicial system. He will get away with murder. I guarantee you, any one of us out here do some of those things that this man has done. While they've been here, let's talk about closer to home. Greg Abbott. I don't care what nobody said. Greg Abbott helped kidnap people and sent them over to Buffalo. Because I'm still trying to figure out how the governor from Florida comes down and pick up they weren't Texans per se, but they were on our soil. Couldn't have done it without the help of ACA. So he just is guilty. But back to what I'm saying, I think I'm the better candidate because, like I said, my opponent is out of touch. He's out of touch on COVID. Because she said COVID made the minimum wage go up. Well, lady, minimum wage haven't been raised since 1996. It's still 74. So here's the and she said she got picked up in 24 hours. Well, we only had 200 shots over there in Baldwin, and we waited days to get those. So you're out of touch. It didn't happen. I live it every day. People, we don't have food stores. We only got one that's 56 years old and all. Some of East Waco needs one. I got potholes. I know East Waco and Hill County and some of these other places I've been got some too. I'm the soldier. You guys are the soldiers. It's gonna take all of us together. All of you.
Well, that's all, folks. We'll listen to our county commissioner. She'll close us out. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your questions.
Clap, 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 clap. Well, good afternoon, and again, thank you all for coming, for being here. I want to thank Mr. Davis. As I sit and I listen to you as one of the 60,000 people in McLennan County who will be eligible to vote for you. And I want to mention that of the 60,000 voters here in McLennan County, that's out of the 145,000. So McLennan County is pretty significant. I want to thank you for being a father. I want to thank you for being a veteran. And I want to thank you as the County Commissioner for Eastern Rural McLennan County for your perspective on rural issues. And I want to thank our moderator for the 4 o'clock session, Judge Overstreet. I think Mr. Schleicher is going, but we do want to thank our morning moderator. And again, thank you all for being here. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Ms. Mann, and it was an honor and a privilege to be your hostess.
Thank you guys so much. I have one gentleman here who would like to give you just a minute or so. Have you give him a minute or so to say a couple of words, please?
Thank you so much. My name is Jeremy Stropple. I am the only non-GOP candidate for SB 26. I was not invited to come here. Instead, I chose to come and visit with the voters. I want to hear your concerns. It was great to listen. I'm a truck driver, yes, he called it. Yes, I'm a truck driver. I'm not a politician. I'm a citizen. I'm running for office. I make videos sometimes, and I say I'm everybody's favorite truck driver / citizen politician. But that's who I am. I'm the only opposition to the Republican incumbent, Brian Birdwell. I don't have a budget. I don't have a staff. So a lot of my stuff is on Facebook. And I've joined a lot of Democrat groups so I can learn what the public wants. So vote yes for Jeremy S. Don't forget about the rest. And I thank you for your time.
I would also like to recognize our Justice of the Peace candidate Precinct 5, Lucian Sanchez. Our Justice of Peace candidate James Lee had to leave for family event, I believe, so he was here earlier.
We got, Falls County.
Falls County in the room.
County.
Falls County Judge candidate. Thank you very much for being here. Anybody else?
Chair.
Our chair for Falls County, Mark Hayes, our chair for McLennan County. One of our big volunteers today, former chair of Hill County, Ernest Brister back there. And I would like to thank all the volunteers who helped set up, namely Pollyanna and Daniel Thibodeau, Ernest Brister, Larry Ward, Mark Hayes, and Dennis Duke. Mr. Duke over here providing our audio and video assistance. Thank you very, very much. It was an honor to meet you, Judge Overstreet. Thank you for being here. And if you are not registered to vote, we have DVRs here who will register you to vote. If you have forgotten, early voting begins October 24th and goes through November the 4th. Election day is November the 8th. If you haven't volunteered to be an election worker with your county, call your elections admin or your county chair and get signed up. The deadline for applying for ballot by mail is October 28th. And I believe, does that take care of everything except souls to the polls? Sunday, October 30th. Okay. Yes, anyone, the McLennan County Democratic Party is having a get out the vote kickoff party hosted by McLennan County Democratic Party and Aaron Shank. And it will be at 1902 Austin Avenue, Aaron Shank's office and bed and breakfast place. And hot dogs and ice cream provided, a real old fashioned Democratic Party. So come along, it's 5 o'clock to 8. Thank you all for being here, for being good citizens and interested in the voting process and our candidates and learning more about them. We appreciate you and have a good Saturday.